So hi guys, welcome to this part of the chat application. So today we are going to see how we can set up email authentication using Firebase in our application. So Firebase provides its library for React Native to provide its authentication using this React Native Firebase app. But we have already seen how we can use a Firebase library in this Firestore. So today we are not going to use this authentication library. We are going to call all the APIs by ourselves using the fetch API. So you can go to this Firebase Auth Rest API website and you can see all the REST APIs related to authentication in Firebase. So we are going to use these APIs. So for enabling email authentication, we will need to go to this Firebase console, then authentication and then sign in method, and then we'll click to email and password and we'll enable this service. And first of all, we have a lot of changes in our actions and reducer files because I have come up with a better structure of action and reducers. So that's my mistake, and we will start changing that things one by one. So first of all, we are going to go to action types, and we do not need all of this action. We just need a single action named as authenticate. So we are going to use that same action for login and sign up both, like this. And now we are in our auth reducer file. So now we have defined these three more variables, also email, password and token. And now there are some changes in our auth reducer also. So instead of all of these action types that we have earlier defined, we are going to set only two action types. First is authenticate and second is logout. So now our reducer look like this. We authenticate, we are returning all of this field, and all of this field will be passed by our action also whenever we are passing this authenticate function. And then our next function is logout, which is similar as before. It's just having the initial state and it's just changing this login status to auth status. And now it makes more sense to change this login status name to auth status. So let's do this. So we are just going to copy this auth status here, and then we are going to change this login status file name and variable there. So let's just change it here first, auth status, and let's just copy it everywhere there is login status. And then we are going to import our auth status from constant/login status, and then we are going to go to login status, and then we are going to rename its file name. So we will put auth status here also. If you do not want to rename all of this file, you can just go on with the previous one. And now we are in our action files of our auth, and now here comes the major changes. So first of all, we are going to delete this autologin, logout and this login function, and we are going to rewrite all of these. So first of all, we are not going to use this login and sign up differently. We are just going to create a function that is named as authenticate, and it will take parameter as email, password, and it will take a boolean also that is named as sign up, and its default value we are setting as false. So by this variable we will define that whether this authentication is used for sign up or not. So that's why we are having only one function instead of login and sign up. And now we need to have a URL endpoint. So there are two URL endpoints, one for sign up and one for login. So if you go to this REST API docs, you can see sign up with email and sign in with email. So sign in means login. So we'll go to first sign up email and endpoint that we need to use, and you need to replace this API key value along with this bracket with your own API key that you will find here when you go to project setting, and you will find this web API key somewhere here. This web API key. So you need to copy this API key and replace it here along with these brackets. And similar with the login API endpoint also, you need to copy this URL and you need to paste it here. So we are going to create a constant named URL endpoint, and if we are doing sign up, then our URL endpoint would be this one, where we will replace this API key soon. So this one, and this should be a string. And now we are going to replace this API key with ours. And if it knows not sign up, then we are probably logging. Then we are going to use this API endpoint, sign in with email, and we are going to copy this here, and we are going to paste it here as a string, and then we are going to replace our its API key variable with ours. So copy this here and replace it here. So now we have our URL endpoint here as a constant, and now we are going to use redux-thunk that would be used for making asynchronous API call. So we use redux as return, and it we can give a action as async, and it will provide us a dispatch of. We are going to dispatch an action here that would be of type action types dot authenticate, and which is having its payload as its payload will contain email, password, user ID, and token. So now before dispatching the action, we can perform our asynchronous task also. So now let's create an API call using await fetch, and in the first argument of fetch we are need to give the URL endpoint. So we have already created that constant here, and in the second argument we can give extra data to that. So our method would be post here, because it is written the method would be post, so we can give it a method as post, and we need to give it some header also, like this content type equal to application slash JSON. So we can give it a header, and now we need to give it some body also, where we are going to pass all our data to that post API. So for passing that data, we first need to stringify our object. So we are going to use json.stringify, and in there we are going to pass all our data as email, password, and so we need to give these three values: email, password, and return secure token, which should always be true. So we are just going to give that also, return secure token as true. And now this error is coming because of eslint that says that fetch is not defined. So we are going to add this thing in our eslint rules. So we are going to set some globals, and in this globals we are going to give it a fetch equal to false. That will turn off this warning of our fetch variable, that is a global variable. So now this error is gone. So after making this API call, we will have a response as constant response, and now we will check if this response is okay or not. If response is not okay, then we are going to throw an error, and this error would be handled by try and catch wherever we are calling this authenticate method. So constant error data would be equal to, we need to convert this response JSON to JavaScript object. So there is a method in that we can use response.json. So it's an asynchronous method, so we need to have await there, and we are going to throw error, throw new error, and in that error we are going to pass the message that we are getting from this error data. So error data dot error dot message, And if this response is okay, then again we are going to convert our response JSON object to JavaScript object. And now we are going to extract some of the variables from this response data like user ID, token and expiry time, in which this token would be expired in seconds. So after that time, this token would not be valid to get or read some data from the Firestore. So that we need to log out our user from our application after that expiry time. So now we have extracted this of the variables and we have converted our expiry time into milliseconds. And now we are using our this variable to dispatch our action, and in that payload we are passing this user ID and token. And along with dispatching the action, we also need to save our users data as email and password to our asynchronous storage. So we are going to call this save user method that will take email ID and password. So let's just first call this methods, and then we will take an object here that would be named as user data, and then we are going to store that object in our asynchronous storage. And now we are going to create our logout function as export const logout, which will take 0 parameters, and it will first of all return an object without redux-thunk. So its type would be action types dot logout, and its payload would be empty. And while logging off the user, we also need to clear the asynchronous storage also. So we are going to call delete data function. And now we are going to create our auto authentication method also, that will call either this authenticate method or this logout method. And now using redux-thunk we can return an asynchronous function as dispatch. And in this asynchronous function, first of all we are going to get our user data using this method get user data. And if this user data is null, that is we are not already logged in, then we are going to dispatch an action that would be of logout. Otherwise we are going to authenticate our user using this user email and password. So we are going to dispatch authenticate here, and in this authenticate we are going to pass user data dot email and user data dot password. So now this authenticate method can throw an error, that means our user cannot log in. So now what we are going to do, we are going to dispatch this action inside a try catch block. So we are going to try this, and if this throws an error, then we are going to dispatch our logout. And now we also need to implement automatic logout whenever our token expires. So we are going to create another function named as set logout timer that will take and prop as expire time, and it will use redux-thunk. So we can use asynchronous function here, and in this asynchronous function we are going to set our timeout as set timeout. We are going to call an action after this time. So we are going to call this action as dispatch logout. So we are going to log out after this time if the timer if our token expires. And we need to remove this listener also whenever our app closes. So let's create a constant named as let timer, and set timer as the return of this set timeout. And now using this timer we can clear our timeout also. So let's create this function as constant clear timer that will take no prop, and it will if there is a timer then it will clear that timer. So clear timeout and our timer. So whenever some user log out, we need to clear this timer. So we'll go to this logout function and we will call this clear timer method from here. And whenever someone authenticates, then we need to set this logout timer also. So whenever someone authenticates, then we are going to set this set timer and we are going to give this as this expiry time. Now whenever we are going to log in, we are going to display this authenticate action with email, password and nothing else. And whenever we are going to sign up, we are going to display this authenticate with email, password and a boolean equal to true. And whenever we are going to log out a function, we just need to display this logout function. And this auto authenticate function will be called on our startup screen in the first render. So this is our startup screen where we are dispatching this auto authenticate function in the first render only, and we have this root navigator which is listening to this auth status variable, and depending on this variable it is rendering this component conditionally. So the initial value of this auth status is checking, so that's why we are getting our startup screen in the first, and after the first render, it will change this auth status to either logged out or logged in. So if it is logged out, then it is rendering this auth screen where we need to log in or sign up, or and if it is logged in, then it is rendering this home component and this home navigator which contains this chat screen and this door screen. So these are the changes that I have made behind the screen in my UI, and I have some changes in this navigator also, as you can see. So if you are interested in that, you can go to GitHub and check that out. In this video we are going to focus on authentication, so that's what we are going to do. So this auth handler is a function that will be called whenever we will press on login on or sign up button, and this sign up variable is used to determine whether we are clicking on login button or sign up button. So first of all, our action would be determined whether it is a login or sign up. So let's define our action as let action, and now we are checking if we are signing up. Then our action would be authenticate, and we are going to pass email, password and true. And if it is not sign up, then it is login. Then our action would be authenticate with email and password only. And you can pass false also here, but it is the default value, so you do not need to pass false there. So we will just delete that, and now we have our action, and now it's time to dispatch our action. So for dispatching our authenticate action, what we have discussed earlier, that we have a throw here there also. So for handling that error, for handling that exception, we need to wrap it inside a try and catch block. So we are going to try, and then we are going to dispatch this action, dispatch and our action. And if that code throws some error, then we will go into this catch function, this catch block, and we are going to get a error here. And we are going to, for now we are going to just console.log that error, console.log error. And now we have this our logout button also. So in logout we are going to dispatch our logout action. And now instead of just printing this error in our console, we are going to show some alert to our user. So for that we are going to define a constant error and set error that would be initialized as null. And now before dispatching any action, we are going to set our error as null again. And if we are in our catch block, then we are going to set our error as error message. So set error as error dot message. And now we will use our use effect hook that will be called whenever this error variable changes. So use effect, and this function would be called whenever this effect whenever this error value changes. And in here we are going to show some alert to the user. So if there is some error, then we are going to show alert dot alert, and the first argument of alert is the title. So we are going to give it an error occur, and we are going to give it a message. Its second argument is a message, so we are going to give it a message as this error, whatever that error is. And the third argument would be the list of some buttons. So for now we are going to give it a button as OK only. So text would be its text would be OK. So this is how our application is looking now. So we have this email field, password field, and whenever we'll click on this sign up, go to sign up, it will change this button to sign up. And now one more thing what we want, whenever we will try to log in, we should show some activity indicator here that would be spinning around, so that user will know that I have already clicked and something is going on in the background. So let's just try to add that thing. So we are going to create a constant that is loading, and set loading that would be initialized as false. And whenever a user press on this button, that is whenever this auth handler is called, we are going to set this as true. So set loading as true, and whenever our action is completed, we are going to set this loading to false. And we can add await here to wait for this dispatch action to complete. And if this dispatch action is been completed, then we will migrate to the new screen. Then we cannot set this set loading to false after migrating, otherwise it will give us an error that you cannot like change some component after it is unmounted. So we are just going to set this loading equal to false whenever only when we are having some error. So we have this like button, so we will just render it conditionally. If it is loading, then we are going to return an activity indicator here, otherwise we are going to return a button here. And we are going to set its color as colors.primary, and we are going to set its size as large. So let's try to sign up first with a user ID. So let's create a user with spidermonkey@gmail.com, and let's give it a password as 123456, and we will click on sign up. So now we are in our home screen, where we can go to the general and see all the messages there. And whenever we are going to close this application and reopen it, it will try to log in automatically. And if it logins successfully, then we will go to our home screen again. So now in our home screen, and if we log out, then we will go back to this login or sign up screen, and let's try to log in with our email ID and password with a wrong password. So spidermonkey@gmail.com, and we are going to give it a password as 111111. So this is a wrong password, and now when we click on this login button, it will show us an error that we are catching in this try catch block. So it is showing us an error as invalid password, which has been sent by Firebase to us, that we are retrieving here. And now our user has been created in our Firebase authentication as spidermonkey@gmail.com. So whenever you try to log in into an user which do not already exist, they will throw you an error. And if you try to sign up again with the same email, then it will also show you an error like email already exists. So in this way, Firebase authentication works. Now we have seen how we can write data to our Redux and asynchronous storage, and we have seen how we can read data from asynchronous storage. Now it's turn to read data from our Redux, like the user ID that we are storing. So instead of this device info that get user ID, we are going to use this user ID that we are storing in our Redux. So for doing that, we are going to use this use selector hook from React Redux. So use selector, and it will give us this store that we have created. So it is giving us a store, and we need to extract out this slice that we have created as auth in this store. So it will give us, so we need to take store dot auth. So now we have this auth slice which contains these variables, and we need to extract out this user ID from that. So we can do dot user ID. And now our user ID is not the unique ID of every mobile. It is the unique ID that is created by Firebase using our email and password. And if these two variables name are same, we can directly destructure our object using this object destructuring. So it will take out this user ID variable from store.auth, and if we want a token also, then we can write token here. So this name should be same as we have defined in our initial state. So in the next video, we are going to have a drawer navigator that will open from the left, and it will have this text input, and whatever room ID we will pass to that, it will open that chat room from there, and we will have this general chat room as our home screen. So hope you liked the video. If you have any doubt, please ask in the comment section. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.
जाना लावड़े